just interrupt you. Let me just get Professor Pandey also to speak on this. Professor Pandey, I'm just going to repeat a premise. To get a law passed in India's parliament today, okay, just the law, forget the judicial review that often these laws are challenged on, it's become so complicated, so tumultuous that sometimes it takes decades to put together the entire constitution. What was the lesson that we can draw in modern times from that?
Very excellent question you have posed. Actually, if you are to understand the making of Indian Constitution, then one will have to see the freedom movement which took place in India, which evolved something like a consensus in the mind of the Indians that they should have an India which should be governed on certain principles. Principle of democracy, principle of devolution, democratic decentralization, and the principle of inclusion, principle of unity and integrity that is based on the dignity of the individual. These words are the constitutional words. How these words came to be accepted by those who were making Indian Constitution? If you go through the freedom movement and the making of India as India became in 1947, then right from 1885, if you have to see, or even in 1857, or as a student of history, I will say, if you look to the Vedic period, from Vedic period onwards, if you look to the ethos of the Indian culture, you would find that how democracy was very much inbuilt in the Indian culture. If you see the Vedic societies, particularly Sabha and Samiti, how the decisions were made in the Vedic society, the very ancient civilizational root of India, that democracy or the principle of coming to a decision through a democratic process has been inbuilt in the Indian civilization. And when the British came to India to establish their rule, they saw to it that they work here with a principle of rule of law. From 1773 onwards, if you have time, give me 2 minutes more time.
Finish your thought, sir. Finish your thought.
Yeah. What? Let me continue?
Yeah, yes. Waiting for you, sir.
Okay. So, if you see the evolution of Indian Constitution as far as the British rule is concerned, if you take the period 1773, that is Regulating Act. From Regulating Act onwards, the British rulers, they framed rules and acts with the view to establish in India something we call rule of law. And the rules and regulations, they were framed by the British Parliament for the Indian subjects. Now, in that very making of the Indian rules and regulations by the British Parliament, they evolved something like a system where they gradually tried to enlist the support of the Indians from the very top to the bottom. Yeah. And if you just go through the last 3 acts of the British Parliament, that is 1909 Morley Minto Reform, and then 1919 Chelmsford Reform, and the 1935 Government of India Act. Then, from the British perspective, you may see that how India was being something like given an opportunity where British, the alien rulers, tried to co-opt the Indians for the running of
and to some measure, of course, as Gandhi said, 40,000 British couldn't rule a country of 300 million people without, the cooperation of the 300 million. So in some cases they were successful. Of course, by the time, we saw the 1935 Government of India Act had a lot of opposition as well. Then Cripps Commission and so on and so forth.
Mr. Moderator, let me finish. Sir, I'm just saying that the making of Indian Constitution was the result of the freedom movement, and particularly the principles evolved during the freedom movement. The principles were, if you look to the assertions or the declarations of the Congress Party, particularly 1929 Declaration of Complete Independence.
Yes.
If you look to the details of 1920-22 non-cooperation movement, if you look to the details of the civil disobedience movement, 1930-33, If you look to the...
I get the progression argument that a lot of points of consensus had evolved during decades of
So let me say, give me 1 minute more. 1 minute more.
That will turn into a speech, sir. I have other people waiting, but you go ahead, quickly finish your thought.
Let me conclude. I'm just saying that if you are to understand the Indian Constitution and its nature, then you will have to understand the character of the freedom movement, which compelled each and everyone who took part in the Constitutional Assembly to come up with a constitution.
So there was a historical, force, like they say, an idea whose time it's come. But in actually sitting down with a group of people, representing various interests, and let's not say that the common goal was the same, but varied interests did not occur. They were more than 1,000, of course, amendments were moved, put to vote to get it done. Ashwini Dubey, in a system in Parliament in modern times, in a system of judicial review of parliamentary procedure, when things sometimes take years, months, decades, what is the lesson that we can draw from the Constituent Assembly?
Thank you.